Mullet Man Jeff. He's upside down, though. I gotta try
There
it
he
again. Mullet Man Jeff.
Well,
how'd you like the race?
it was all right.
I liked it. Well, you're a Kyle Larson fan, though. So.
Yeah.
So you stunk at the end.
Yeah.
But I will say this, and just right off the bat, I will say...
NASCAR's stupid.
No, New Atlanta is probably one of my favorite tracks. I really like it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I like Atlanta, too.
I do.
So, I was kind of doing other stuff throughout the whole race, so I didn't really get to pay much attention to it. But
it was... I would encourage you to go back and watch the last 40-ish laps, and it was a lead change like every lap.
Yeah.
Ross Chastain, Austin Cindric,
yeah,
swapping it.
I kind of saw that towards like the last couple laps. So
I really liked it. So before we get too far into it, though,
gentlemen, start your engines.
Anyway,
all right.
Welcome to Shifting Gears. So anyway, I loved watching it because of course I was pulling for Ross Chastain once Chase Elliott wrecked, and of course he was swapping and everything. I thought it was going to be good.
I was going for Carson Hocevar. I mean, he was up there at the end. Even whenever Bell and Larson were up there, I was like, it's the Tulsa shootout all over again.
That's what a lot of people were saying on the radio today.
Yeah. So,
but
it's pretty interesting to kind of look back the last couple months and see we're both kind of in the same spot, except for Bell was the one chasing Larson down. So,
but I'll say this: I really like the Atlanta track because it's getting worn out, so handling is coming in effect, but it's still a draft. So if you remember back before they repaved the track in 2011, the Daytona in 2011, Daytona was a lot like this, to where you could get loose and wreck all by yourself at Daytona because it was just very bumpy and worn out. And that's how I feel like New Atlanta is right now. Like you have to have a good handling car, but you cannot pull away. So there still is the draft there, but the car in second can easily get a run and pass you if they wanted to. And that makes, I think, for really good racing, especially at New Atlanta. I think it's more of a breath of fresh air for drafting tracks, because Daytona and Talladega, as much as I love them, and I will always love them because of just the chaos and the craziness.
Yeah.
And I think it's nice to have that every once in a while. But it is fun because it takes you back to like the mid-2000s era of super speedway racing when that's how it was. And so I really like New Atlanta where it was like that. But like you said, I was really pulling for Carson Hocevar too. If you remember, a couple weeks ago when we made our bold predictions, I predicted that he would maybe win one race this year. And I was hoping I would be right on race 2.
I was almost right with my prediction last week. Busch was up there the whole race. And then he was like, oh, here comes the end of the race. So I got to fall back to 10th. So
I know.
But I almost got that one correct. But
yeah, and so, but like also going Michael McDowell. I don't know if you saw where he finished. Did you see where he finished? 13th.
Hey,
he came from 6 laps down.
He was on my fantasy, and that's why I did all right. I looked at my fantasy NASCAR and I was like, how in the world did it? And I was like, I'm glad I took Brad Keselowski out for him.
just to put that in perspective, he was in the garage as they were running, or I think they were under caution at that point, but going around the track.
Heads up to NASCAR, because that was a great change in the rule for them to be able to do that. I mean, he would have had a DNF, but he ended up finishing 13th. So NASCAR, good move on that, but switching into NASCAR, not so good moves, and the caution at the end. I've heard it said on this podcast or on Shifting Gears, and I've heard it other places. I've seen it on memes. I think they need to put a line either at the beginning of turn 3, middle of turn 3 and 4, or at the end of turn 4, where if they pass that line, there's no cautions. They race it to the line. I feel like that would give NASCAR more of a, they were at the line, so we can't do anything, or make it to where the wheeling lights, like on the back half of the track, go off, but not through turns 4 into the finish line.
I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate because I agree with you for the most part, but I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate for the sake of the video, and I just want to bring up some of this. The only problem I see in that is if they go past the line, if we do have that, and then a car starts flipping or has a noticeable hard hit to where you can tell you need to get safety trucks there immediately, then I don't know how you would do that, because then they would have to overrule that line and say, well, safety was a question. But then it starts to draw the same line that we're in now, whereas in what's too hard of a hit or what's hard enough of a hit to do that, or whatever the case is. And so I've always said, you've heard me say it here, I agree with that, because I want it to be like as soon as turn 4 is done, like race it, even if they throw the caution, race it back to the line. So this is where we have enough technology. All these cars are filled with technology, and especially we know the technology exists too, because you look at like F1 and stuff like that, and just all the technology that their cars have. They should put something to the effect of, if you are ahead of the wreck. I heard this on the radio, and of course they shot it down saying this was stupid, but I actually agreed with what he said. If you are ahead of the wreck, you can still throw the caution out, but have it to where it's just for people behind the wreck. It literally will slow the cars down, or whatever they can do. There's technology out there that exists. And then the people ahead of the wreck can race. So that's where it's like, okay, that's one fix, but at the same time, playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
You could get really close to fixing races then, because they can just slow that car down. Mm-hmm. And I don't want that.
No, I don't want that either.
All we need to do is, we're debating this so much to where all it needs to do is just NASCAR needs to be consistent. Because here's the thing. If they were consistent in every single race, even if I didn't like them throwing the caution, at least they were consistent. Mm-hmm. But we're to the point of, it almost looks like they could fix races now too, because they're so inconsistent that if a person they like more is in the lead when that wreck happens, they can throw the yellow. Yeah. That way they can win. Yeah. It's the same way. And it wouldn't be so bad of a deal as it was in Daytona. Like, you can argue, well, Daytona's a bigger track, so they have to do that. And I could see that argument. But
they literally raced
in the Xfinity race, the same wreck happened at the exact same spot on the track, and they did not throw a caution. Uh-huh. So that's where you can look and say, okay, you have to be consistent. Mm-hmm. If you want people to get into the sport that are not already watching NASCAR, which I'm trying to get some of my family, Nathan and Courtney, stuff like that, to watch it, and they might like it, but when they have dumb rules like this, they're so inconsistent and don't call it, it's hard to get into it because it's so hard to understand.
And some people might argue, well, the line thing is not going to be consistent when you have a massive track like Daytona and Bristol. Mm-hmm. Well, that's when you move the line. Mm-hmm. At a Daytona where you still have so much of the track to go around, it can be at the beginning of turn 3. Mm-hmm. You know, the line can be right there. But at a Bristol, it would have to be right at the end of turn 4, because by the time you get around, it's going to be, you know. Mm-hmm. So that's where NASCAR could be a little bit more lenient because of the size of the tracks. Yeah. But, I mean, even at Atlanta, it's a mile track, a mile and a half, and they were wrecking on the backstretch. You can race to the checkered and turn the caution lights on right as soon as you're past it. But
and NASCAR's always said before that they're worried about the cars behind the wreck piling into it. But again, I would argue this, and I'll argue it again, just like I did last week. What cars are there to still pile into the wreck? Because by the time the caution lights came out, the wreck was done. Mm-hmm. If you look, I mean, the wreck started before Carson Hosar even bumped the 20 car into the turn, and then they came on when he was beside him in the middle of the turn. And by that point, Josh Berry and everybody else has already had the wreck was just about done.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand. I never will, but again, it's always a judgment call, and it's just like in any other sport when it comes to balls and strikes and out of bounds and stuff like that. This is just one of those calls in NASCAR that's always a judgment call, so you're always going to have people on either side that are arguing, and so it never will change.
Yeah.
But
well, let's stop beating that dead horse. I'm just gonna bring this up. You said Carson Hocevar hit Christopher Bell into the corner. Personally, I've seen Carson Hocevar getting a lot of hate. And people are like, he's racing too hard. Kyle Busch was upset at him. Ryan Blaney was upset at him. But honestly, I don't see Carson Hocevar in the wrong here. Here's honestly, whenever you just said he hit Christopher Bell into the... Well, you know where he learned that? Richard Petty. The bump and run. Yeah. That's literally what it used to be. That's called racing. I mean, yes, you new guys might hate it, but
it's been going on.
He's doing what he...
Yeah.
It's racing. Rubbin's racing.
It's been going on since NASCAR started, and Dale Earnhardt was praised for doing this. But everybody complains and says these drivers just don't want the races bad enough, or they have no personality, or whatever the case is. I hear him argue stuff like that all the time. Well, Carson Hocevar is one that definitely wants it bad enough, and he's trying all he can. And it was the last lap of a race, or the last closing laps for some of them. And I mean, yeah, they're making contact, but it's the last lap. Like, you're going for the win. I don't blame Carson Hocevar at all. I don't think he should change. I think NASCAR drivers, just like in baseball, those unwritten rules they talk about all the time. Like, I use this as an example all the time, where if a person gets a home run and they watch the ball get a home run, and that ticks the other team off. Who cares?
Yeah,
that's so stupid. And then they get in a big fight. Well, you watched that. Well, you shouldn't have pitched it down where I could hit it a home run. Yeah. That's the same way with this. So you made a little bit of contact, but it was on the last. Now, if it was lap 2, understandable.
Yeah,
be mad. But with 2 laps to go, or 3 or 4 or 5 laps to go, or you have the last lap,
it's for a game.
It is, and if you don't like it, too bad. Stop racing. I cannot stand it.
Let's put it in this aspect. Okay, you're having a party, have a whole bunch of pizza. There's one slice left. I would punch my grandma. Just saying. If it's the last slice of pizza.
Depends on what flavor, what kind of pizza.
Well, you know, the normal pepperoni. Stuffed crust.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I mean, I would punch someone to get out of the way. And, you know, bump and run. Bump and run. That's what I'm saying. There you
go. Bump, take it, and run.
That's right.
Run with it.
So,
no. But, I mean, yeah. So,
I just... That used to be NASCAR. And... Carson Hocevar is just doing what he's got to do. I mean, Larson did the same thing a couple laps before with Cindric. He's using him up.
I know.
And it's because that's the sport.
Yeah.
You're going to, I mean, the people that are good at enduring from that stuff are the good ones. So
everybody that was upset with Carson Hocevar has done exactly the same thing recently. Not a long time ago, but recently. And some people, like Kyle Larson, for example, I don't necessarily know if Kyle Larson was mad at him. I didn't hear him, so to speak.
No, I
didn't watch all the post race. But just as an example, Kyle Larson, literally the wreck before, used up Austin Cindric. So like, you can make that argument. It's just I just get tired of people being all whiny. It's like, get over it. You're in the top motorsport, and it's going to be competitive. So either be competitive and be fine with it, or get out of the sport. That's what I think, and get somebody else in there that will actually do the job. But that's it for the video already. I know that seemed like it took not that long at all.
It seemed like it took 15 minutes.
Yeah, just about. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and we'll continue on the podcast. But if you like this video, comment, subscribe. And if you want to listen to more of the conversation, then go to Spotify on the podcast.
There you go. Easy, easy, easy.